This next hack I got for you is super simple and it's gonna blow your mind. What's up? It's Chris from the Rewired Soul, where we talk about the problem, but we focus on the solution. And this is depression hacks. Today, we're gonna be talking about this little thing called gratitude. So gratitude has been proven through a bunch of different studies that it helps pull you out of that depressive funk. Now, I'm gonna share a little bit of my personal experience with gratitude. When I first started working on my mental health, it wasn't just depression, it was addiction, it was anxiety. One of the biggest things too was I had a lot of anger issues, and some of you might relate to that. Sometimes our mental illness, anxiety, depression, what have you, it can manifest into anger. And I remember early on hearing a lot of people saying weird stuff like, oh, whenever you're in a bad mood, just make sure you write a gratitude list. And I was like, you must be out of your mind. And the reason being, when I'm in a depressive funk, or even when I'm angry, or if I'm in self-pity, the last thing that I wanna do is think about what I'm grateful for, especially because I have a brain that tells me that I have nothing to be grateful for. When you're in depression, it is probably the hardest thing to think of even one thing that you're grateful for, because our brains tell us that everything is going wrong. Nobody likes us, nobody cares about us, this world is against us. But worst of all, we negative talk ourselves. We say, oh, I'm such a screw up, I'm not good at anything. All these things, and we just beat the heck out of ourselves. So right now, I'm gonna read to you a little bit about a study that they did over at UC Davis with two of their top psychologists, and this study will actually change the way that you think about gratitude and depression. Two psychologists, Dr. Robert A. Emmons of the University of California, Davis, and Dr. Michael E. McCullough of the University of Miami, have had done much research on gratitude. In one study, they asked all participants to write a few sentences each week, focusing on particular topics. One group wrote about things they were grateful for that had occurred during the week. A second group wrote about daily irritations or things that had displeased them. And the third group wrote about events that had affected them with no emphasis on them being positive or negative. After 10 weeks, those who wrote about gratitude were more optimistic and felt better about their lives. Surprisingly, they also exercised more and had fewer visits to physicians than those who focused on sources of aggravation. So this is actually a study that has been duplicated multiple times. Like, how crazy is that? How crazy is that? This is the kind of stuff that gets me excited. Something this simple that can be replicated pulls people out of depression. And you need to understand that this works for anybody. If you just happen to stumble across my video and you're not looking for depression hacks, like, think about the power and the weight of this study. People who simply wrote about things that they were grateful for on a daily basis had less visits to physicians. They were more likely to have an optimistic outlook on life. There are plenty of people in this world who are just negative Nancy's, or they're always in a bad mood, or they're always just have that stank face on. I'm like, This is something that not only pulls you out of depression, but it can also just make you a more optimistic, better living person. That is amazing to me. Now, if you want to understand a little bit of the science behind why this actually works, it's because your brain is wired for negativity. All of our brains are wired for negativity, and we don't realize that. It's just those of us who struggle with depression, they're wired a little bit more for negativity. But the brain is wired for negativity as part of our basic survival instincts. We need to remember the bad. Remembering the bad first, rather than the good, is a way for us to protect ourselves. Originally, when we were developing as human beings, it was so that we could remember dangerous places, dangerous things. Our amygdala would light up, we would have our fight, flight, or freeze response, which gives us a stress response. We would remember bad situations like, oh snap, that dude got eaten over there by a gorilla, or whatever it is. I don't know why I said gorilla, but that's the reason why that part of the brain for negativity is so much stronger, is that it was built for us to survive. The problem is that now we're living in a day and age where we don't need to remember the bad so much. Now, A lot of people struggle with negativity. You probably know some negative people who may not even struggle with depression, and they have negativity in their life just because that's the way their brain works. They always remember the bad. They always remember the bad. They focus on the bad. They might hyper-focus on the bad. They're complainers. Well, that's just part of the way our brain works. When you start focusing on the things that you're grateful for, it starts to change your brain. It starts to rebalance those scales. So now when you start focusing on the positive aspects, your brain starts to biologically change so you remember the good rather than the bad. I cannot tell you how crazy it is to me today that I have people who come up to me and they say, Chris, you're really optimistic. Chris, you're one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. Chris, how are you always in a good mood? Like, these are the last things that I thought anybody would ever say to me, but it's because I looked inside and I found the things to be grateful for that my brain just changed, and that's just how I automatically think. It's second nature. Now, if you've been keeping up with the Depression Hack series, I mentioned in the introduction video that a lot of the methods that I'm gonna teach you, they're gonna start to intercept. So, before this, I did a video on setting goals. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link to it. But setting goals, I talked about how setting goals starts to trigger dopamine, even if they're very small goals. So what you should do is take this idea of writing a gratitude list and set it as a daily goal. If you set it as a daily goal, guess what? You're getting not one, but two boosts of dopamine and serotonin that will help pull you out of that depression. So what you start doing is compiling these new pieces of information which will help develop your brain, fire those neurotransmitters to yank you out of that depressive funk. And over time, the more you practice this, and a lot of these things aren't even considered practice, they're just things that you gotta do, set reminders for yourself to do, and you start coming out of depression even more naturally. What I highly recommend is that you get a journal and you start making a gratitude list. This can be anywhere from 5 to 10 things. I'll say the minimum is 5, 10 is good, but if you want to go off the charts, go for it. Pick a time, whether it's in the morning or in the night, to write the things that you are grateful for. I'm gonna go ahead and give you some examples on what to be grateful for, because when you're in depression, like I said, it's very hard to think of things to be grateful for. But by the time I finish these lists of what you can use, you'll be like, oh wow, it is pretty easy to be grateful for things. Like, you don't gotta be grateful for, $1 million car or a pretty girlfriend or a sexy boyfriend or whatever it is. It's the very little things that you gotta start pinpointing on to really help you pull out of that depression. So in the mornings, a good practice would be to write about, I'm grateful that I get to wake up today. Notice how I said I get to wake up today. I'm grateful that I get to go to work today. I'm grateful that I have a car to get to work. I'm grateful that I have money to take the bus to work. I'm grateful that I have a bike to get me to work. I'm grateful that I have these legs that can walk me to work. I'm grateful that I have food in the fridge that I can eat breakfast this morning. I'm grateful that when I woke up this morning, there was a roof over my head. I'm grateful that even though I don't have a job, I have the willingness to look for a job today. You see how easy it is to find those things to be grateful for? If it works better for your schedule, you can start writing the gratitude list at night. Write about the things that happened to you that day that you're grateful for. And I'm dead serious if you want to use something like this. I'm grateful that I didn't punch that guy in the face that I work with. That's something to be grateful for. I'm grateful that I have a home to come home to. I'm grateful that I have people or family or children or a dog or a cat or a pet fish to come home to. I'm grateful that I have a bed to go to sleep in tonight. I'm grateful that when I come home tonight, I have electricity that'll light up my house. I'm grateful that there's food in the fridge for me to eat dinner. Or if you're feeling lazy, I'm grateful that I have money in the bank to buy some fast food tonight. any of these things. You see how simple it is? Just making this list. It's so easy. So now, I'm gonna challenge you. I want you to keep a daily gratitude journal. Do this for 10 weeks. Get yourself a journal, or heck, if you don't have a journal, just get some scrap paper. Every morning or every night, write a gratitude list of at least 5 things. And do me a favor, as you progress through the weeks, leave comments down below. Let me know how it's working. Do you start to see a change in perception? Because that's what happened to me. The more I started expressing gratitude, I started asking myself, I'm like, who is this guy? And it made me smile because I couldn't believe that I was this guy who was being grateful for so many things. So leave your progress down below so the new people who come in and check this video, they know that it actually works. Because the goal of this thing is to help more and more people learn these very simple techniques to get themselves out of depression. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe. I'm doing daily content. So keep checking in. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.